Welcome. So I made a video yesterday with regards to why children sometimes run away. The video was a little bit intense, of course it was, because it brought back memories not only from my personal situation and life experience from an abusive father, but also from the thousands of clients that I dealt with daily that were abused, and the pain and suffering that the children went through, even growing up to adults and suffering from that abuse from mothers and fathers that didn't really know what they were doing. And there were a lot of times, many times, that people would come to me confused and wondering why their children ran away. So my work had a lot to do with helping the children and helping the mums and dads see past their program, their system program, basically what they were. They were brainwashed as children, and their parents were. So once you break free from that, you can start afresh and you can move on. How many people do that? Not many, but some do, and it's beautiful. So I made that video because of, it wasn't just because of the video that were the message that was sent to me by a lady who was totally possessed with a religion cult that was so angry and so aggressive and so I would definitely borderline evil for sure, under the guise of God, Catholic energy. So yeah, I got plenty of messages last night of some said it was a bit heavy, some said you handled it well, some said you're always going to get different interpretations depending on what your life story is and how you are at this moment. I'm used to it. I've been doing it 20 years now, so I'm used to being attacked. I'm used to getting lovely messages. I'm used to getting opinionated people. That's what it is. The life is like that, unfortunately. You're never going to please everybody. If I said to you I love you, half of the people would say he's a creep, half of the people would say that's lovely, and you can't win. I've made plenty of videos on that. I did a video once where just to prove, I put a heart on one of my posts, and I got like 50 within an hour, 50 likes and about 10 thumbs down just on a heart. So you can't, you're not really looking at what you're doing. You're looking at you're seeing how people are feeling at that given moment. So it's interesting. It really is an interesting thing. So I've come in this morning ready to start work on some Libyan desert quartz, some Moldavites that I'm just about finished with, some Moldavite trios over there, and some beautiful tourmaline watermelon little nuggets that I put a few on the website. They went really well, and there's a few more there that I've just about finished with, so I'm looking forward to putting them online. Yeah, I mean, this is a coffee morning chat, really. This is a coffee morning chat for sure. This isn't a video that I would normally do because I normally have my tops on. Yeah, that's the Parasite Cleanse. And every time I drink it, it's as of late, these past couple of 6 months, I can feel my body purging and cleansing of all that was that I ate from 0 to 38, all the crap and everything that's stuck inside there. You can feel it. Everything's coming up, and although it's I'm always trying to get it up and get it out, there's still more coming out all the time. It's like, but it's a good thing. It's great. It really is great. So yeah, like I sit here and think about my past and all that I've been through as a child, and you realize how far you've come when you were accepting of all of the nature that was given to me the nature of life, the nature of a father and a mother. I remember when I first really understood my life, and it was like in a garden, and my dad made me a swing. Basically, in the garden, he put 2 posts and concreted them down in wood, and then one across, and then 2 screws, and then the rope, and just like a wood shelf so I could sit on it, and it was a swing then, just like the swing I've got outside, but that one's prettier. And I loved that swing, loved it, absolutely loved it. But do you know how many times I got beat for swinging on that swing and jumping off it? You have no idea. And you look back now and you think, this feeling of wanting to fly and swing as high as you can get, and just as you get to the highest point, just jump off and then land. And if my dad saw me, he'd basically grab me by my arm and then just whack my ass really hard. Whether it was once or twice or 3 times, depending on how his mood was at that given moment. So if he was in a bad mood, if he was in an angry mood, I'd get more whacks. Most of the time it was just 1 whack. So it was worth it. It was worth it because when the whack was done, I'd just jump over the fence and then I'd be off to the park playing either with my friends or on my own. And that's kind of like the first memories I get of my life, really. The abuse was every day. But yet he would do things that were kind and loving. Like, I remember once he made a kite, and he spent ages, and he was saying, come in the pantry, and he was building this kite from, balsa wood and thin, like tissue paper, coloured tissue paper, and it looked like some were quite long, and then we'd go to the park, and I'd have to hold it, and then he'd walk far, far, far away, and then he'd say, I can't remember. I used to run with him and then let it go, and then it'd go up, and it'd go up for miles, and people from all over just came because they've never seen anything so spectacular. And it was so high, and I was so proud, of a dad that had made this, and then he let me have it and work with it. But then he'd get angry with me because I didn't do it properly, and then he'd take it back. But yeah, there was these moments of love that you could see in him. And as I got older, his abuse got worse. And as a child, you don't think about why a father abuses you. You just live through the abuse, and you've got to handle it and deal with it. And for me, the abuse wasn't the smack. I mentioned it yesterday. I could cope with the smack. Give me a smack, no problem, it's done. But the worry of the smack, or when he's going to smack me, or is he going to get angry today, that was the abuse. That was the worst part for me. To other people, it might have been a punch or a slap. But for me, it was like the waiting for him to come home at 6 o'clock. And through the night, gradually see him get up and pace up and down. And if he went up and down the stairs, then you knew you were in trouble. And the more he paced, the more you could feel he was getting more and more angry. And then it was like he would blow up. He would just blow up for no reason. Basically, we'd all be sat there watching telly, and we'd all be really nervous. So we lived like that every day. Practically every day. I can't remember a day that I didn't feel abused or, felt like I was living in this torture. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of people sent me messages, and it was really kind, actually, really loving. I really enjoyed your messages saying that, I was so indoctrined into this program, whether it was the church and how unloving I became. And many people talked about the abuse of their mums and dads, and how they worked very hard to break that mold from the way they were and the way they are to their children, which is a phenomenal thing. That's exactly why we're here, to break the mold of our parents. I mean, some parents are absolutely amazing, so why would you want to break the mold? Well, you'd want to be different. You want to be different in a more loving way. So if a parent's nasty, then you want to break the mold and be a better version of your parents, if that's possible. But really, is there such thing as a better version? Because we're all different. So we're all different versions of all the molds that we break anyway. But yeah, I mean, for me, it makes complete sense. If I've been beaten by my father, then the abuse that I received from him, surely, if I realised that it was a painful abuse and it was awful, surely why would I want to raise my hand to a child that I bring up? Why would I hurt my children if I went through all of that pain and realised that wasn't right? So only a few people actually get that. And most people just continue that mold and continue the abuse and so on. So there is a few people who have the power, the strength, the intuition, the knowledge, the wisdom to break free from old patterns which were programming. It's all programming, it's all brainwashing. So, growing up and being beat most days for one thing or another, it could be anything. It could be my footprint in the soil of his cabbage patch. So he'd walk around the garden and check the garden to see if there was any disturbance anywhere. If there were, then I'd be in for a whack. So that was most days. I remember Andrew Downey once said to me, Mark, I remember as a kid coming, looking over the fence, and I always used to see your dad beat you. And he said it was awful to see. But then you'd smile and jump over the fence and you'd be fine. And it's true, it didn't affect me. The beat didn't affect me. But did it? Did it affect me? Maybe it did. Maybe it did. Maybe the physical did affect me. Maybe I'm turning a blind eye. Maybe it did affect me. But actually afterwards, it was okay. It was like at school. If I did something wrong at school, I'd be in front of the deputy headmaster, Mr. Murray's office. Here again, Bajerski. Yes, sir. It didn't bother me. I wasn't actually bothered. Because I knew it would be I'd try all sorts, I'd put books down my underpants. Hey, the things I'd do. I'd put 3 or 4 pairs of underpants on. But actually don't do it. Mind you won't even get beat. That's all gone now, right, at schools. But I used to put 4 pairs of socks on because sometimes it would be the back of the legs. That really hurt, bad, really hurt. They were abusers. However you put it. But it was a nice guy. Mr. Murray was a nice guy, but, just that was the way it was. And they would beat you, and some teachers would enjoy beating you and get a buzz out of it. And some teachers, you can see, Mr. Murray, I could feel he felt, on one sense, he felt justified by beating me. But in another sense, I could also tell that inside somewhere it hurt him. And that was interesting. But yeah, I always used to make Mr. Murray laugh, I think, a few times. Yeah. Interesting times at school. Board rubber by one teacher on your head or in your face. Another teacher, geography teacher, was a golden handshake. So he'd basically crush your bones, your hands, crack them together so you'd be on the floor screaming in pain. All teachers had their own unique way of abuse, but they justified it by, we were unruly kids, but it wasn't their fault and it wasn't our fault. We just didn't conform to this brainwashing narrative, the system that just brainwashes and pumps out, regurgitates robots. And I didn't want to be a robot, and I didn't want to learn what they were teaching me, so I spent most of the time by a window. I just jumped next to a window and look outside, and I could feel the prison bars around the window. And it felt like prison to me. And the only time I had freedom is when the bell rang and we went outside, and I had a strong arm, a very strong arm. And the teachers would allow me to have extra lessons at throwing the javelin. So I'd be out while all the other kids were inside, and I'd be throwing the javelin. Going back to home, when my mum passed away because of my dad's abuse, because she got cancer in the stomach, and that's normally where the pain and suffering sits when somebody is abusive to you. And that's why it's really important that you get away from any abusive relationship, because it will sit inside you and it will fester into a cancer in the end. It normally does. If it doesn't, you're very lucky. So run away as fast as you can and get your freedom back in your health. Don't stay with people who are abusive. It just isn't worth it. Not for your health. So yeah, when my mum finally died, she was only 45, but it was inevitable with his anger and rage. He still continued. My brothers and sisters left home because they were like, I think my youngest brother to me was 7 or 8 years difference, because I was the mistake in the family. My mum used to say I was the best mistake she ever had. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, brilliant. So, yeah, it was like I was on my own with my dad, and the abuse still continued in different ways. And then I remembered when it stopped. I remember the day it stopped, the abuse. I remember the day he stopped beating me. So he beat me a few times after my mum passed, because I was stood outside a shop with some friends and they were saying, stay outside and keep an eye out. And then I realised they were stealing. Anyway, of course, I'm going to get caught, right? I didn't steal anything, but I was stood outside, so I'm definitely part of it. So I got caught and it was horrible. Got home and there was a policeman there, and oof, I can't even explain how bad that was, what my dad did to me when the policeman left. That was awful. Anyway, a few months or maybe a year later, the abuse continued, but then one day, I think I'd grown up a little bit more. I was more, I don't know what it was, but I was on the table, and at the kitchen table, and I was making tea, because I used to make food for my dad. When my mum died, I actually started cooking. So I cooked every night for my dad. Yeah, it's just what I did, I enjoyed cooking. So I was 12 years old, and I remember I just knocked over some milk, and I quickly picked it back up, and I turned like this, and my dad's hung over me with his, he did this when he beat me, with his hand like that, and I looked at him, and I remember this power, this inner power from somewhere just came out, and there was no fear. For the first time, there was no fear of anything, and I just said, just look at you, Dad. Just look at you. Look at how you are over what? A little bit of milk. And then I looked at him again and I said, it's not the milk, Dad. It's you. You're an angry, nasty man. And he went, turned and walked out. He never touched me thereafter. Never hit me thereafter. So at 12-year-old, my beating stopped, which was great, because maybe he learned something from that. Maybe he realised, oof, it isn't the milk, is it? Because the milk's not the problem. It's my anger. So I grew up, and I remember couldn't wait to leave home. As soon as I turned 16, I was off. And I became independent. I was independent anyway. I was good at making money. I was a businessman even at 13, 14 years old. And at 15 years old, I was working in most nightclubs, being a professional dancer, actually. Well, I wasn't professional at that time, but as soon as I turned of age, I was doing professional dancing. When I left school, I was doing really well. So from there, I did all sorts. I loved antiques. I loved dealing with bits, and I was like a second-hand market man. I used to love going into houses, clearing all their rubbish, and then selling it, and thinking, "Wow, there's There's money in muck. But I used to love, putting. I probably was one of the first ones that came up with the idea, and then a lot of charities started doing it. Which was, I used to leave bin bags with a little note saying, anything that you don't want, please put in here, and I'll pick it up on Saturday, normally Saturday or Sunday. And when I got there, I used to pick these bags up and then walk back home, and then go through them all, and then take them to Mrs. Singh's at Marsh, and she'd buy tons of stuff off me. I did pretty good. And then I realised a few years later, charities are doing this now, leaving bags. I did that when I was a kid. It was just a good idea, a good thought. So yeah, after that, I met somebody, and then we lived together when I was very young, and then it was like, yeah. Every time I went to see my father, it was like nothing's really changed. He's still the same person, still gets angry, still doesn't appreciate in any way, in any shape or form. But there was once when I remember I was in bed asleep, and it was very early in the morning because my dad was a very hard worker. And he used to go to a mill and work as a finisher in a Yorkshire mill. And he used to set off at 6 in the morning, so I was still in bed, ready to go to school. And my mum had just died. And I remember he came into the room one time, and I was asleep, but I wasn't asleep. And he kissed my forehead, and then he just went. And it's moments like that you realise, and you look back and you realise, wow, he did love me, just like your parents love you. Even though they're horrible and they do nasty things, they still love you. Of course they love you. But they can only love you as much as they understand what love is. So their way of loving you, the way you love your children, or the way you want to be loved, is probably the same as what they feel their love is to you. So we measure love of what we want, but actually when you look at what they do, just that one little kiss made you realise that, of course he loves me. Of course he loves me. And then you realise it's got nothing to do with the love when this anger and this rage comes. All of this is because of how they've been brought up and what they've been through. You see, my dad at a young age went into the army. And all the way through that army, as they treat them, and the abuse and the anger, and they're all dogs to the system. That's why they give them dog tags. And the way they abuse them and send them out and to kill and to just kill their spirit. And then after that, they come home to nothing. The system just kicks and spits them out, doesn't care about them, and they're left to deal with all the emotions of killing. I remember once I asked my dad, have you killed anybody? And he said, he was so angry. And he says, what a stupid question. And because he was Polish, he'd say, you bloody stupid. I drove a tank. What did you bloody expect? And of course he was right. But I was just asking him because I wanted to know what it felt like and how do you feel now, But that was shut down straight away. And you could see now, you look back, the pain and suffering that he must have felt for his country. If I could swear, I would. So, we'll be all talking German now. I can hear half of these people listening to this. We'll be talking German now. Yeah, that's not the point, mate. It's not the point. None of that's the point. Killing is wrong, no matter if it's for a country or not. You just don't do no harm. And if you follow what somebody tells you to do, then you'll have to end up being like my father, aggressive, angry, taking it out on everybody else, taking it out on the ones that loved him, that cared. So every time I went back, I don't know. I think a child always wants to have that love from a parent and want I don't know whether it's respect or just to be acknowledged that maybe they're happy with who you are and what you're doing and what you've done. So every time I used to go, I'd like, what can I do to I don't know whether it was a selfish thing in me, whether I needed it, but it lasted a long time. So I'd always try and it's not impress. It feels like, oh, you're trying to impress Mark. You're trying to impress your dad. No, I think we just want love. I think we just want to feel the connection of love. You know, is it there? Is there somebody in there that actually does love? And just show me something. Forget it. I remember, I might have told this story before, but I used to buy bits and pieces and do things all the time to no avail. It was always wrong or negative. And I remember that the sofa he had was sitting on springs. And I just opened up my first auction house and it was doing quite well. And I was the auctioneer there. And I remember I'm going to buy my dad a new settee. So you can imagine how much that would cost. And at the time, my wife was okay with it. And I said, oh, thanks. I said, his sofa's just falling to bits. It's got 4 cushions underneath the springs. So I remember he was out and John and myself came in and took the old sofa, chucked it away and brought the new one. And I went back to see him the following day and he was furious. What have you done with my sofa? And I said, it was falling to bits, Dad. I bought you this one. It's brand new. I don't like it. I don't want it. So, yeah. Got back in the van and I just sat there and I wasn't upset. I was like, well, you knew this was going to happen, Mark. This always happens. What is this change? What is this moment that you think is gonna happen one day? Are you watching too many movies, Mark? Are you watching too many love stories? Like, father and son hugging each other. It's just and then I started laughing. I literally banged my head against the wheel of my transit van and I'm banging my head and I'm just laughing. And I realised, what the hell are you doing, Mark? Your dad is your dad. This is who he is. Stop getting upset. Stop trying to be something that you want to be to make him change the way he is. It's never going to happen. Oh, and I came to that glorious penny drop moment that I accepted my father for who he was. And I still loved him for who he was, for all his flaws, all the bad things he did. I accepted him for who he is. But in that acceptance, I actually made a decision. And that was not to go and visit him and endure the emotional punchbag that I was for his lifelong negativity and anger and shortcomings. You see, when he came into this country and met my beautiful mother, that was the one wonderful thing he did. He wanted to be an electrician, and I only got to know this because when he died, my sister got up on the podium and told us the story. This was just incredible for me. And basically goes that he went for a job to become an electrician. He was turned down, and he was so upset. And his pride was hurt so much that he never then went for another job to try and apply to become an electrician, but then he went for an easier job that he could easily get, which was a cloth finisher. There was nothing wrong with that. It was a very, very good job in itself, because you have to concentrate, you've got to look carefully, and it takes a good eye. So, but that's not what he wanted to do. So he loved playing around with electronics. He was brilliant. The guy could fix any car, we had a motorhome, a VW motorhome. Anything went wrong with it, he'd get the manual out, read it and fix it. So he was genius. But because of his pride, instead of trying for another job, he just went for the easiest job, Now it all makes sense as I'm sat in the Mormon church listening to the funeral service of my sister saying that this is what he always wanted to do. And then I realized why we all got beaten. The penny dropped. It was just so incredible. We got beaten because he hated his job. That was one of the major factors. And plus the fact he used to be a closet alcoholic. So a lot of Polish were like that. They like their whiskey and brandy, and they put it into a cupboard. So every night I realized when he got up off the sofa and go into the other room, I never thought, because I'm just a kid, but he used to open this, you know, we used to have a sideboard with a pull down, and his drinks were in there, and he used to slowly get more and more drunk. And that's why through the night we noticed that more and more, he was getting more and more angry. And that's when the abuse would come. So all of these things came together very well. But I got a lot of grief from certain people saying, why aren't you going to see your father? And why didn't you go to see your father on when he was in hospital dying? And I said, because I made peace with him. I remember ringing him up saying, hi Dad, and I was living in Spain now. Who is this? I said, Mark, your son. Oh, okay. I said, I'm just ringing you to tell you that I love you and thank you for everything you've done. I didn't really get a response, but I wasn't expecting one, because this was me be able to move forward, and I just wanted him to know. I wasn't looking for any, in fact, I was, I already knew what the response would be. Oh, okay, goodbye. Because he only had two forms of conversation, that was rage or silence. Yeah, the silence was worse. So the moment I banged my head on the steering wheel after staying, there's just nothing I can do. I came to terms with it, and it was great. So then I didn't go all the time, might have gone every now and again, but didn't try and help, didn't try and do anything, and just then moved to Spain, and that was it. I even remember when we were moving to Spain, he came to the party. We had kind of like a rave party, Gypsy Kings in one room and rave in the other. It was packed. And he came to the party, and then he was leaving. And just as we were leaving, he says, here. And he gave me an envelope. And I think there was 100 euros in there. When I was leaving, and it was like this, like I said, certain things you realize that is the extent of their love, not like a hug or anything like that. That's as much as he can give, but that doesn't mean that wasn't as powerful as what we would be with somebody else and love them. It is powerful. What they did was, in their mind and their thoughts, is powerful. And I guess yesterday when I made that video, it was kind of one-sided. And the reason obviously now you know why I'm talking like this, it's probably the pennies dropped for you, is that there's another side to things as well. And that side is that we also have to acknowledge our parents and the way they are. And we can't always expect what we want from them to make us feel better and happier. And sometimes we have to accept that what they've been through, and their pain and suffering and dogma and religion and brainwashing and institution and all of the things that they are now in their mind, it's very hard for them to change. So we have to look at both sides. We have to understand both sides, and we have to find a common ground, a balance. So my understanding to this was, look, I accept the way my dad is. I'm not going to beat myself up over it anymore. And it became small doses and arm's length, which was easier for me. A quick call in to say hello with my children, and then go again. And that was it. Didn't get involved, because I didn't want to get involved with the pain and suffering. So I created my own unique way of still being a good child to his father, but not getting involved with his abuse and suffering. So I figured out ways where, he couldn't abuse me. So I used to meet him sometimes in town, because he was the life and soul. Everybody thought he was amazing and lovely. He used to dance on tables. All the Polish community just thought he was the best thing since sliced bread. Well, that's normally the case. I said that on Sheep Farm on the interview that I did. I said most amazing people like Dom and Chris, that their dad, I met him, it was just incredible. He was the funniest guy I ever met. And they smiled, and with a kind of cheeky smile said, yeah, you didn't really know him. And I'm like, yeah, I did know him, because I realised that most people who come across as amazing and funny and all that are quite abusive behind closed doors. That's normally a trademark. So not everybody. When I speak to you guys, don't ever think that when I speak about one thing that's just it. I might speak of a situation, but there's so many other situations when we talk about these things. If you're watching this, you're trying to piece your story to my story, and if it doesn't piece in and doesn't fit in together, then you're going to disagree with it. Of course you are, because your story is different. So I don't expect you to understand all of this. You might understand one thing, and you might understand nothing, but you might say, well, hang on a minute. 1 minute you're having a go at this woman who said some nasty things, and the daughter doesn't see them, and you were right in saying that, but now you're saying something completely different. Yeah, because I'm not somebody who just is rigid. My life is about learning and understanding and forgiving, because if you can't forgive, you're just going to hold on to the weight which is so heavy that it's just not worth it, because you end up sick and ill. So I don't want to hate anybody, and I don't hate anybody. I have no hate in my heart at all. Do people upset me? Yeah, they do. Do I upset people? Probably, yeah. So there you go. We upset each other. Story of life. But what we do with that and how we handle it is the most important thing. So yesterday, I was infected. I was with the situation, and I released that. And then today I realised, okay, well, I did say what I said, and I meant it, and I don't take anything back. I don't retract anything. That's who I was yesterday. But today I'm slightly different. And today I'm saying, well, there's another side to it, and talk about your dad. That's the only way I can share it. And talk about your clients who, found a way to find mutual ground. And maybe, just maybe, if your mum isn't that nice, and maybe what I've shared with you might make you think a little bit of why your mum or your dad is the way they are. And maybe it's not their fault, even though you say, well, they have a choice. And you're right, they do have a choice. But programming is the hardest thing to unprogram. It really is. If you've been taught from a child that God is this and God is that, it's very hard for you to unlearn things, because that's been the only thing that you've believed in. So, somewhat be a little bit more gentle, and be a little bit more kind and patient. And if you were to start again and meet your mum or your dad, then meet them on some kind of grounds, where it's mutual, and like walk in a park where there's public, go to a cafe, just meet for a coffee, or go to the zoo. And I don't like zoos. I think it's awful. Take that back. Or meet somewhere where you can go, I don't know. I was going to say a botanical garden, but or go to a butterfly sanctuary. Even they're all prisons too. Just go for a walk in the park or something. Anyway, I'm waffling on too much. I don't know whether this will help you in any way, but for me, the answer to everything is to try and put your feet into your parents' shoes and see what they've been through, and the pain and suffering and the anger that they've become. And the only thing I say is this: don't be a punchbag for your family. Don't try and make them love you or want them to love you and change. Just accept them for who they are. And once you've accepted them, maybe you can move forward a little bit and maybe, see them with your... It's not about giving another chance. I don't believe in that. I'm just saying, okay, well, maybe my children need to see their grandparents, even if it's once before they die or whatever it is, because you don't want to look back and feel the guilt one day that you never actually took your children to see their grandparents. And that's a little bit hard for the kids. I always remember when I was married to Susie, Susie always used to bring China to visit a grandma and granddad. And that was so lovely. It was so lovely. Even though, we all struggle with our parents. So many of us would come back and, I get it. But she never stopped, even though she wasn't happy going a lot of the times because of one thing or another. But it ended up being beautiful because the story goes where Susie's mum married another man, and Jim ended up absolutely idolizing China, besotted. And the moment that China went back to England and visited her favorite granddad, he was in bed and he died that night, waiting for her to come back. It was like the bond between them. And even now, I know that Jim is always with her. I see it and feel it. So sometimes it's good. I know that we don't want to feel bad and we don't want to feel abused, but sometimes it's also strong of you to say, you know what, I don't like dealing with my parents, but I think it's only fair that my child gets to say hello to grandma and granddad. And of course, if it's going to be hell and they're going to treat your children the same way as they treat you, which normally isn't the case, because I normally find that, I don't know why, but grandparents seem to have this second chance to be a better person with their grandchildren. And you, well, that's nice, isn't it? That's lovely. Yeah, you're really nice with my child. What about me? But it's true. I guess grandchildren are definitely there to give grandparents a second chance. All right, from my heart to yours, have a lovely day. I want to thank you all so much for supporting Bajerski.com. Thank you for going over there and shopping and buying my tools that I've worked with for 20 years that have helped me throughout the most challenging 20 years of my life and becoming stronger and stronger to this day. And not only the crystals, not only the oils, the incense and everything else that I sell and make and create, like the teas. I do it with love, and I hope you enjoy the books that I've written. Like this story I share with you is very similar to the stories I tell in both my books, Diary of an Accidental Psychic and Seeing the Invisible. Both them books are, I think, are fantastic for squatting flies. And if you've got a dodgy leg on your table, you can just put that book underneath, and it's a really good balancer. No, but honestly, they really are nice books because they speak in a way as I speak to you now. And they really help people because I get so many messages. Oh, I just downloaded your ebook. Cost me $5. It's best $5 I ever spent. And then we talk. They'll send me a message of what touched them, what story relates to their story, and now they understand. And Seeing the Invisible is a really thick book. It's like when I look at it, I think, did I really write that? A guy with dyslexia and dyspraxia. But I tell you guys, writing that book was so easy. It just flowed out, and it was just like Arlene was saying, I can't believe how well you've written this, and you've got dyslexia and dyspraxia. And I said, I don't know where it's coming from. It's not me. But that was great. But yeah, I just want to thank you for everything that you've done to support. Just a quick heads up, we've still got the I'm going to keep this tarot course going. If you like how I speak and what I'm saying, then you might, even if you've never heard of tarot and you don't know what it is, the tarot course is available right now for £100. And with that, you get the tarot cards and you get a beautiful black moonstone and free DHL delivery. So basically you're getting it for nothing, and it's in a great course, and you'll learn so much from it. And after you've learned so much and you read the cards and you understand the cards, which you will at the end of it, you can even understand why your parents are like they are, and you can read the cards for yourself to be able to help you with your parents. So that's it, and everything else in life. I mean, my cards are always by my side. They're always by my side. Look at the thickness of them now. That's what happens when you work for so many years with them. Yeah, but they're great. They're great, and it's a great course, and it's selling every day. People are loving it, and I'm getting great messages. So I'm really appreciate that you trust my guidance on this course, 10-hour beautiful online course where it's just videos of me sharing everything about each card, and so much more. I think that's it. I'm not apologising for my video yesterday because it's the truth and it's the way I feel. But I also have another side to me, and I hope you understand and feel the other side to me today. I'm wishing you all a lovely day from my heart to yours. Don't forget, unsubscribe today. And then subscribe again, because sometimes then you'll get your notifications. Silly me.